get started, beginning with approval of minutes. And we have 3 meeting minutes we have to approve tonight. We've been busy this month. The first is from our last board meeting on September 11th. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes as proposed.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. The minutes are approved. The next are from our joint meeting with the Golf Advisory Subcommittee and our Special Facilities Subcommittee meeting on September 18th. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 The minutes are approved. And the third one is from our Committee of the Whole meeting on October 2nd. As amended this afternoon, Mary sent out a revised version after I gave her some input, and you have a copy of that in front of you. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. Do we have any discussion on that, since it's kind of a last-minute change?
I'm fine with your changes. We talked about that under the Triangle Park as well.
Right,
For
right. So let's say that applies to all new surfacing that we do going forward, that investigation? Okay. Motion to approve the minutes?
a motion is amended.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Minutes are approved. All right, the next item is a presentation by Jeff Waite, Superintendent of Special Facilities, on fee recommendations for next year. Jeff?
Good evening, Mr. President, board members. The first item on the agenda is the Deerpath Golf Course fee recommendations for FY14. We are seeking approval for these fees and related fee policies in order to prepare our annual budget for the 2013 golf season. Just a little background, we have had joint meetings of the Golf Advisory Benchmarking Committee, the Park Board Special Facilities Subcommittee, as well as a full meeting of the Golf Advisory in which we presented these recommendations. We had a lively discussion about them, and from those meetings, we are here to present the revised recommendations. The goal of the fee recommendation is to create and operate a successful golf operation that is no longer dependent upon subsidies from the city, as we've had for the last couple of years. We understand as the city, the Golf Advisory, and the management operations of Deerpath that we must make progress towards returning Deerpath to a self-sustaining enterprise, at the same time upholding the strong values for service and experience. We recognize that it's very important to get back to no subsidies, and the fees and policy changes recommended tonight will strengthen our ability to reach this goal. So with that, the first item, is membership fees. We are proposing no fee increase prior to February 15th, 2013. After that time, we do recommend a 3% increase. Now, over the past 7 years, we receive about 80% of our income in January and February. So if we were to institute the fee increase of 3% starting January 1st, that revenue would be approximately $10,000, but because we're looking to do this afterwards, we're talking about a small increase of approximately $2,000. The other item that we are suggesting is offering an incentive for those individuals looking to purchase their membership. This also kind of sparks them to make sure that they do this before the February 15th deadline. And that is to provide them a 25% discount on any purchase. It can be one item, it could be several items, anything within the golf shop, as a way to provide some value back to their membership. Excuse me. The other item is daily fees. We are proposing no changes to our daily fee for either resident or non-resident. And in your packet, you have a comparison of local facilities that we have identified as our competitors. And what we have listed in there for our fees is our maximum rack rate So we plan to continue to use our third-party booking sources, that's Back9, Golf Now, and Easy Links, to sell those underutilized tee times. They have large databases of golfers in the Chicagoland area in which we can target those individuals with our prices, and we have that dynamic pricing. So the closer that we get to a day and a tee time that's underutilized, the more discount that we are able to provide. Or if we see an increase in demand for certain time periods or certain hours, that price will either remain the same or increase from where we've set the price. Excuse me. We are also budgeting for a 5% increase, or 856 additional rounds off of where we anticipate FY13 to be at. Other item, electric cart fee. We are proposing to increase electric cart fees, which, carts necessitate constant maintenance and staff upkeep, as well as utility expenses. And with the proposed increases, we are anticipating an increase of $28,538 in additional revenue. This will offset those additional costs, utility costs. So we're going to propose one fee, $19. So a member that was 17 or a non-member 18, everyone will pay $19. We are going to be offering a senior discount of $1 from Monday to Friday for our senior players. The other item is permanent tee time. We are recommending increasing the fee by $50. So we will be going from, excuse me, $250 to $300. We are also recommending instituting a no-show cancellation policy, which I will get to after I present all the fees. And one of the things that we are proposing is reserving 4 tee times for the general public. Now, tee times are Saturdays and Sundays, generally between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. These are high demand times, and we could command the full rack rate for this time, but because we have this permanent tee time, people pay additional fee, the extra $300 on top of their membership to secure their time. We know that this is very important to our membership. It's one of those opportunities for us to provide value back to them. But we do need to institute a policy because of our utilization rate. Our utilization rate during that time on Saturdays and Sundays is approximately 66%, which tells us that we're leaving a lot of revenue or potential revenue on the table without this policy, without the ability to resell on the open market these tee times. So when I finish the other miscellaneous, we'll come back to what the permanent tee time policy will be, or we're recommending. There's some miscellaneous fees that we would like to increase, or recommending that we increase as well. The large range bucket, we're recommending going from $11 to $15. This would put it more in line with the price per ball that the small and medium buckets are. Club rentals, we're recommending increasing to $20. That just puts us more in line with what the local competition is offering. And we also recommending increasing the local rental fee by $5. Small dollar amounts, but little things that we can do to improve the bottom line. Now, the no-show cancellation policy, we need to have a policy in place so that we can either make sure that our utilization rate among permanent tee time holders increases, or have the staff's ability to sell those back on the open market. So we are recommending establishing this, whereas there will be no policy if the cancellation is made before 7 p.m. on Wednesday for a Saturday tee time, or 7 p.m. on Thursday for a Sunday tee time. substitutes may be used. There will be a 1 penalty if the group has less than 3 players. Tee times will be revoked if a group reaches 6 total points. Now, there are some exceptions. The weather condition warrants that no carts are available, or there's frost and lightning delay in the morning, or any other special occasion determined by the general manager.
Jeff, I like this, but why 6 points? That seems kind of generous.
Talking to the golf advisory, they felt that was appropriate. If you think about it, that is a month and a half of forfeiting, not having your tee times. There's a 29-week season, and we just kind of randomly selected 6 as being, that item that wasn't too strict, and one that wasn't too liberal.
I think, Jeff, that needs to be a lot stricter.
Pardon me?
A lot stricter than 6 points. I mean, giving a group who's a permanent time, who's committed to play on that time every Saturday or Sunday, and allowing them to miss a month or
Month and a half.
5 weeks.
Right.
That's just not.
I understand your concern. I think what we wanted to do is we wanted to manage this change, because this is new for the membership, and this is a core group of members that 29 weeks. They come in. They usually get a bucket of balls, a cart, other items. So we do see a lot of revenue out of this core group. And rather than put something on too strict, I think the golf advisory was really, let's kind of ease into it, see how it goes. Once we have a season under our belt, if we feel that 6 was just too much, then we can come back, have the discussion with the advisory, the subcommittee of the special facilities committee, and have that discussion again. But as a good starting point, we felt that this would be ideal.
I mean, the goal is to give them give them a sense for what we're trying to do, right? Push them to communicate if they're not going to be there, to really get together as a foursome and let us know if we can sell the time. That's the goal. So, I mean, my reaction is, if I'm a member, my feathers are potentially a little ruffled. I gotta pay $50 more for my permanent time than I had in the past, and now you're asking me to take this step, which I conceptually understand as a member, but it's still more work on my part. So I'm leaning toward my criticism would be, did you guys consider, or criticism's the wrong word, because Jeff, I think this is really warranted. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, I think this is the right thing to do for the golf course. But Wednesday night's pretty early in the week. Did you consider letting them have till Thursday at 7 instead of Wednesday at 7 for a Saturday? And here's my thought on that. A lot of times people don't know if they're not going to make it, as early as what you're asking them to know. The communication from the pro, if someone, if a resident non-permanent tee time member calls for a Saturday morning tee time, is going to be, hey, we don't know how many slots we have. Call first thing on Friday morning. We'll let you know, and then they know, and that would be, to me, that would be almost as good as if it was Thursday morning they could call, and it would mean that it wasn't so onerous on the members.
Right. The reason that we picked such a time frame is that the more time that we can provide city staff that you're not going to be utilizing that time, the more opportunity that we have to obtain full rack rate.
Oh, no, I understand.
So
I get that, and I'm wondering if we, in other words, the communication could be for the pro. If the pro wants to sell a slot, he says, you know what? Typically, we've been having 5 openings. We won't know for sure until, tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning being Friday morning. Call Friday morning, and we'll let you know if there's a slot, and you'll get.
A lot of this is not done over the phone, right?
Well, I got to tell you, the permanent tee times, I understand what you're saying, Steve, but the permanent tee times are a group of people that have been doing this for a long time. They know the minute they walk off the 18th tee or green from the previous week, if they're playing, they've paid to play every week.
Yeah.
If they can't communicate Sunday that they're not playing, now, understand there's circumstances that come up, but that's a phone call to the pro saying, we're only gonna have 3. I just think there's gotta be more teeth in this policy, because people not showing up, paying money for a tee time and not showing up, upsets the whole balance and flow of the course. When you plug in between a permanent tee time, a group off the street that hasn't played the course, it slows everyone down. And that's the purpose of these permanent times, is you're paying for this slot, so when you go in the lottery, you're picking that time, you're paying that time, you're committed those 29 weeks. And everyone knows that. And that's why, I think it's a lot different, the permanent tee times, and someone coming off the street on regular tee times getting that. These people know that, and they can call in advance. The problem has been that people are buying tee times and just not showing up. That's the problem. And that opens up, all these times. And, there's a core group of these permanent times that are always there, always playing, but people are getting tee times and not showing. And that's where the issue is.
And I think that also recognizes we do allow people to substitute someone else to play in their slot. So they should be checking in with their group by Wednesday to say, hey, are we using our time? No, you're not playing, let's get a substitute. Because none of these penalties come into play if they've got a foursome that they're putting out on
Yeah, the
out
permanent
to
tee
play.
times
So
are
it
self-policed.
forces the groups to communicate by 2 days before, communicate with each other and try to get a group. And if you can't, then the city has an opportunity to sell it. So it kind of, if you wait to the last minute, they aren't going to find that out to the last minute, and the points are going to rack up that much faster against the group. So, I think the idea was to get maximum rate from the city, but also get the groups thinking about their tee time before we hit the weekend. So,
What percentage of revenue comes from people who have permanent tee times?
Says it in the
I thought it
Wow.
said somewhere.
Roughly half, I
Um,
believe.
I wasn't sure if
most-
memberships or permanent.
Generally, you have to have a membership in order to qualify for
Right.
the permanent tee time. So, I'm sorry, I don't have the top
No,
of my
that's all right.
head, so.
Well, it's $400,000 in revenue.
For all members. for not
Right,
necessarily-
what's the total revenue? What's your total golf revenue?
Total golf revenue,
about 100, about 1 million.
yeah.
About $1 million, so
1.2.
it's 40%.
Well, that's permanent, that's members, that's
That's
not
not
team
permanent
times.
tee
That's
times.
not permanent tee times, so.
Because we
No,
sell
it's
every
398
8
memberships.
every 8 minutes, we have a tee time going off
But the
on
permanent tee times,
tee
there's
times.
roughly,
So,
what was it this year? Saturday was like 28 and Sunday was
yeah, 30
20,
or anything, yeah.
30 or something like that? Those are the permanent.
But
tee
up to
times.
this point, we've had no penalties whatsoever, so people decide Saturday morning not to show, and that time goes unused.
Right.
Right,
So whatever we're gonna do is going to be a step forward in the right direction.
right.
Right.
I don't know if this is perfect or not, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I think it should be 5 points, or they should let us know by Thursday. I mean, I think this is the right direction, and whatever you, as staff, feel is the appropriate course to start out, makes sense.
Right, and
I
I think,
just would be ready for criticism from the membership.
Oh.
I think,
Yeah.
I think, I think it's, I think I wouldn't mind it if you made it 3 instead of 6, honestly. I just think Wednesday's too early in the week. That's all.
This has been previewed by the advisory committee, correct?
yes.
And they're comfortable with it, and
This is the final
they're the
recommendation.
they're the voice of the golfing community allegedly.
Right, they
so-
are the city's eyes and ears for the membership, and their warning to us, maybe that's too strong of a word, but when we first presented our fee proposal to them, was like, this isn't gonna fly with the membership. They're very skittish about what we're doing out there, what Kemper's role is out there, and we needed to take in consideration that last year we put an 8% increase on memberships, resident memberships, and they were like, this plus another membership or another increase, you're going to scare members away. And membership is a core group of users, and it represents a large portion of our revenue.
And-
So we
and
need to be considerate of
The permanent times, though, again, it's unique because it's not, we're not talking about the whole membership base. It's these permanent tee time players that have been here consistently, and they're getting a permanent time because they're committing to playing at this time every week. And if they can't do it, I mean, 6 points, that's, you get a whole month to not show up, and that's not what the purpose of it. I think if you talk to the permanent tea time members, there's gonna be people not happy with it, but I'm gonna bet there's gonna be a lot of people that are very happy with it because it's gonna not disrupt that flow of play.
Right, I think the advisory has 5 members on there that hold permanent tea times, and, you know, their thought was start with 6. I mean, obviously, we, you know, at the end of the season, next season, at the end of the permanent tea times, we can certainly come back and say, okay, how did this work? How many groups were almost at 6? Or, you know, what was our cancellation rate? What was our utilization rate? I think with the data that we can collect through this coming season, that we can make a sound decision about what kind of improvements that we need to do. Do we need to tighten up the point system? Do we need to, you know, increase or decrease the amount of notification that groups need to provide the general manager? I think, you know, from this point, this is just a safe starting point with the memberships that I think that are just really concerned about what we're doing and why we're doing certain things.
I think the key is going to be communicating it to those members from the get-go, and I guarantee you, they're going to say, after they've got their first point, I had no idea there was this policy, and then when they get their second point, they're going to be saying, I had no idea there was this policy, and so.
Right, here's what we would most likely do. Once we present fees to City Council and those are approved, a letter goes out to the membership saying, here's an opportunity to get your membership with no increase by this time. We could also put those people holding permanent tea times. We have made a policy change. If it's recommended by the board, it goes to City Council. City Council says yes, then we can present that to them in a letter. We also hold a lottery breakfast. Everybody gets, you know, in March, that everybody gets to select their time, and it's another opportunity for us to, okay, did everybody receive the letter? If not, here is the policy for cancellations and no-show. Everybody's there. So, and then, you know, of course, you know, there some flexibility from the general manager. It's like, hey, you didn't provide your notice. You know, this is, you know, whatever reason that may be. So, you know, I don't want to say, hey, there's some flexibility and it's more than 6, but, you know, hey, it will be clearly presented to a group that misses for the first time that here's the policy and everything. So any questions in regards to fee recommendations or the
only other one I
policy?
just had was the 4 times that are going to be reserved. I think that's going to be. Is that going to be 4 times reserved in the permanent tea time mix?
I'm sorry?
The 4 times that are going to be reserved? I think it was on
each hour.
Yeah, we are going to reserve back the city, the last tea time of every hour that we will be able to sell to the general public, so that we can, you know, try to achieve some revenue, because that, again, that's a high rack rate time for us, for, well, any golf course. So, and it does open up people to think, hey, you know, Deerpath has some times available, or, you know, I think in the past people have just not even looked at our availability because of you know, the lack of this policy or not having opening times to play. So the more golfers that we can get in that are outside our membership or our daily fee players, the more benefit that we're going to have. Obviously, the word of mouth about what a great experience that it is will get out there. So,
How will that be marketed, Jeff? Will that be in the annual brochure that goes out saying that there's a tea time available at the last?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do that. Any email blasts that come out of Deerpath, we'll make sure that puts on that it goes out to them, all the vendors that we utilize. So yes, absolutely.
Lauren, though, just to clarify, we don't do the mailing of a brochure to every resident. We did discontinue that last year, so the brochure we have is an online brochure. So it would be on that, listed on that. But we do send personal letters, as Jeff mentioned, to the past membership base, you know, letting them know, and we'll have an ad in the newspaper, things like that, letting know that sales are starting, so. Yeah.
And that's gonna be 4 less permanent tea times in
Yes.
the group. yeah.
No, it'll still be the same volume of permanent tea times, just stretched out over a longer window.
Right.
Right,
So
but
in order to build
those-
ours in, you'll
that-
see 4
yeah.
later in the day than we've
But that
had.
last hour where that's being reserved, that last tea
Last tea
time on
slot.
the hour is,
Right.
could be a
Right.
prime
But we
permanent
wouldn't
tea
be
time.
taking
Yeah,
we wouldn't be allowing 4 less permanent tea times we've had in the past. It would just be stretched over a longer window. Right.
And just one little question, the locker fee, you're increasing by 5, but it says the lockers are currently underutilized, which struck me as odd. If you're trying to encourage more use, we're gonna,
Right, one of the things that we're gonna do, that we found out, is a lot of the lockers are utilized by juniors. So one of the things that we're gonna try to do is maybe bundle the junior membership with a locker fee, because a lot of the juniors ride their bike. So to carry a bag and ride your bike at the same time is gonna be problematic. So for us to be able to bundle that and present that to parents, I think is gonna provide some more interest in getting a locker.
So it won't be a lot of growth, but we hope
Right.
it'll be a little bit
Right.
at $5 only.
Any other questions on the golf fees cancellation policy? Do we vote on this now, Mary, or we bundle them together?
Yes, we need to do them individually.
So I'd like a motion to approve the fiscal year 14 golf fees and the proposed permanent tee time no-show cancellation policy
So
as
moved.
presented.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? They're passed.
All right. Next item is staff is seeking approval of the FY 2014 Lakefront permit fees. This is the annual approval necessary to prepare annual budgets for the lakefront. As you know, Forest Park Basin is a very unique facility that doesn't exist anywhere else along the North Shore. And, again, this year is its 25th anniversary, so we need to, recognize the Shoreline Restoration Advisory Committee, the YES Committee, City Council, City staff from 25 years ago for such a wonderful facility that we now enjoy. So we do try to look at other facilities when we're setting fees for this, but again, it's very difficult. We don't have an apple-to-apples comparison, but we do try our best to propose something reasonable. So, recommendations. We are recommending no changes to, again, this year as we did last year, no changes to the nanny, senior caregiver, resident guest, and non-resident access fees. This year, we are recommending increasing permit fees by 3.5%, with the exception of the senior permit fees for winter and seasonal storage. This will, is getting them closer to the 25% discount. Last year, we noticed that their rate was 48.52% of what a non-senior pays, so we're trying to get that closer to the 25%. This year, we would like to institute a non-resident daily launch fee of $60, something that we haven't done in the past. It's an opportunity to provide a service to the non-residents and maybe possibly see some additional revenue. We didn't include any increase in our revenue differential because we're really not sure if we're going to be able to attract the non-residents to the facility. There's just a long history of high fees that we're not sure that we're going to be able to overcome, and we need to look at what are the best avenues to get the word out about our daily fee. We did look at, based on past board comments, we did look at all the other non-resident fees, and we do agree that it is very it doesn't really, the differential is so skewed that we really need to kind of take a look at the broader picture of what we can do with the non-resident permit fees for storage and seasonal launchings. But we would like to have a little bit more time to do some research on this, maybe have a bigger discussion both amongst city staff and maybe with the board about what is a more appropriate price structure for non-residents. The biggest reason that we need is just the master plan for Forest Park on the tabletop was just approved. And in preparation for the actual implementation, we revised the parking procedures along the lakefront for the summer. Typically, what we've done is we do this in the order, we park the lots in this order: the north lot, lower lot, the upper south lot, then down to the lower south lot, along the ring road, and then to city lots. And with highly favorable weather days, holidays, weekends, the amount of, the more traffic that is parked down on the lower south lot could be, we're not sure what it could be. I mean, it's possible that we could prevent permit holders from utilizing the space because we've overutilized for beach overflow parking. So we just need some more time to see what the true effects of the parking procedures are going to be. The next item is expanded extra decal fee. This is really, we're not expanding the fee, but we're clarifying what this fee is. In the past, the extra decal was utilized for two families that owned one boat. When you get your launching permit, you get a launching permit and a parking pass. So if two families own one boat, they need a second parking pass for their car to pull their boat. Well, this has created some confusion amongst permit holders who think, oh, I've got another car, I need an extra decal, the prices are different on those. Or someone has a second boat, oh, I need an extra decal, and they sell the extra decal for less than what a boat is. So, it's just really kind of cleaning this up so that it's cleaner, it's crisper, that the user understands it, city staff understands how to utilize it. So we're just wanting to be able to kind of expand that a little bit. Now the last item is we would like to reduce the fee beyond the second watercraft. So in the past, if you owned a boat, your first boat was $410. Your second boat was $205. Your third boat, if you were so lucky to own a third boat, was $51 or $102 and so on. So what we want to do is we want to propose that you get your first boat at $410, your second, third, fourth boat at $205. It's still the same. It takes up the same amount of space. It utilizes the same thing so that one boat owner uses. We just think that in the grand schemes it's a lot fairer to be able to do it this way. We do anticipate a positive revenue differential of $6,116. That's not including the non-resident daily launch fee. So we hope to see some improvement over that item. So any questions in regards to lakefront permit fees?
Yeah, it always seemed to me that the fees we charge to keep boats in the compound are really low for residents compared to keeping boats elsewhere in the water, storage. And that it's a great bargain, but I just wonder if there's some more room there to push a little harder.
That's always a possibility. We're very sensitive about how much to increase on this group because they are a very dedicated, passionate group. Because just increasing increasing the senior rate to reflect the 25%, I did get a little bit of feedback, not positive feedback, from some senior users of the policy. So, it's certainly something that we could research a little bit more and present to the board to see if they want to take on a bigger increase.
I mean, I don't realize there isn't a good comparable dry sailing nearby. I mean, compared to Belmont Harbor, just as another dry sailing place. But I mean, just compared to what does it cost to keep a 25-foot boat in a slip at Waukegan, and what is winter storage at Waukegan, just as a.
Right.
I think,
I would say that we're again, it's two different facilities, I think, and it's just.
But ours is better, so I mean.
Right.
Well, but ours
right,
is
and I think-
self-serve, right?
I think a couple thoughts that I would throw out there. I know Board Member Hill has asked us to investigate the potential for an in-out service in the next year, which would potentially change, the types of launch approach we might use in pricing, and maybe we can put all of this together and look at it at that time, storage versus an in-out launch, which also is storage for a different kind of watercraft, but might be a good way to look at this. I know when we talked about the dredging policy and the city's commitment to keeping the harbor open, making sure the later season, one of the things I thought was interesting with them is a lot of those members who met with us do boat storage and are sailboat users down there. And they did remind us at the time that besides their storage fees, this is a group that holds various events and fundraises and gives money back to the beach operations down there for a variety of different things they've assisted with, whether it's been a small boat replacement for our youth sailing program or the grills and things like that down there. So they are a very important group that supports us in some other ways too that may not just show up in their boating fees. So I think we'd want to look at it, but I think we've talked about it or mentioned it before that wish we did have an apples to apples comparison situation, and we certainly could look at that, but it might be good to do it all in timing after our investigation this winter about the other new idea, and kind of bring it all to the table at the same time if the board would be okay with that. So
As it is, you're proposing a 3.5% increase in the number, I guess, right?
Right, with the exception of the senior seasonal and yearly
Right.
storage. They're going to go up 7% and 10% respectively. That still doesn't get them to 25%. We still have one additional year to make sure that they're at 25%.
That sounds reasonable to me. I don't know how you feel about it, Scott.
I'm fine for this year going ahead with what you proposed.
Okay.
The one push that I have is on the rack rate, for a boat. That number actually seems very high to me. The rack is out in the open. It's not really secure. You can certainly lock your boat to it, but you can't keep any ancillary items there without feeling like they're going to get taken. And for perspective, just up the way in Lake Bluff, you can put your boat in a locked compound for
It's 126.
it's a lot less.
Okay.
It's a lot less. So
Well, yeah, it'd be 250.
no, I'm not. I'm not necessarily feeling like we need to compete with that per se, but either. I just don't know that we're delivering value for that. So at that current price now, apparently we have full racks, right? So maybe.
Not completely, no. We have space available, yes.
That may be an area that we want to look at,
Okay.
being a little too rich. So
Okay.
I hate to consider lowering price because that's not really my general goal, but I think we ought to be at the right value level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want us to evaluate that over the summer, or excuse me, the winter, or do we want us to do
I mean,
this?
can we do that? Can we vote on this as a whole and leave and set that one aside and maybe come back on that one? Is that
we could do it at your November meeting, bring this feedback to you at that time, because it would still allow us to do it in time to go into the council approvals for November 19th meeting.
So
I
we
mean,
just
I
defer
take
a
that-
vote at this
I
point?
take that back. Because of the new packet deadline, we wouldn't have another meeting before it goes to council for their fee approvals. It's an annual fee approval process for them. Do you want to just freeze the rate instead of increasing it, and while we look at it? I mean, that would be, call it out in a little bit different fashion, that we don't raise it
Yeah,
to
I think-
3.5%,
I
and then
think
while
in the
we look
interest
at it?
of, in the interest of time, it's a small matter. I think freezing it makes sense, and I think in the context of the other conversation we had, let's take another look at that as we consider, maybe the in-out service and some other changes down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask, where does this fall, I mean, the boat storage launch in terms of, the goal is to generate, you have different programs that are designed to generate either, hey, this is cost neutral, this is designed to generate a 10% return. Where does this whole program fit in this grant scheme?
Well, we budget to cover potential future improvement. So it takes in consideration the compound, the basin, docks, cranes, to some extent the dredging as well. So it's all part of the larger beach budget, so.
And
So this does, I mean, I remember seeing a chart where certain programs are designed to generate, zero
Correct.
return, some 10%, some 20. Where does this fall in that, or is this not in that system?
This is one of those, it's the break even, not expected to generate any net profit. It's supposed to cover our expenses to the extent that are related to boating services. I will say that our lakefront budget is obviously much bigger. With all the guarding and everything else, it's a loss operation
sure,
for
but the
the,
boat
for our
operations-
department. So, but the goal with the boating was at least to have enough revenues off the kinds of things, services, launches, storage, et cetera, to at least help us cover the boating costs.
I mean, it appears
So-
to me that the racks are more utilized currently than they've been at any point, because I had a boat there for 10 years.
I think when we did the impoundment fee, it really lit a fire underneath some boat owners and made
Yes, it did.
awareness happen, because people said, I didn't even realize, until I heard you had that policy, I didn't even know that you could do that. And we're also seeing with more people doing the paddle boarding, they're down there in that area, and I think they just see that we've got racks and, you could bring a boat down, and I think that interest is growing to do that kind of thing. That's the other reason when Jeff was mentioning the confusion over the decal is just the increase of people who are using jet skis. And that's where that multi-boat discount, kind of really pays off. When you have multiple boats, you can get down to very reasonable launching of 4 different boats down there at very minimal cost. So this would kind of help us with that. So, but yeah, so I think, it's not a lot of money, but it does help us cover our boating related expenses, pier repairs, and, a few things like that Jeff mentioned, so.
Any
Hey,
other questions?
just recommended action, just approval of the FY14 lakefront fees to go into effect February 1, 2003.
The
So
exception of
those-
freezing the
Racks.
rack storage
Oh,
rate,
right,
correct?
Right, and freezing the rack rate, yes.
I don't see any need to freeze the rack rate 3.5%. If that's an issue, we can look at it next year, but that's my,
Let's get the pulse of the board before we vote on that measure then. Do you want
just
us to
looked
look
at
at
the
it
numbers
in
and it is
whole
pretty
with
high.
the others?
It is pretty high,
I
yeah.
think you could justify a number, $100 less. So I'm not proposing that now. I do think we should look at it harder though. But raising it at this point, knowing that I think generally it's way too high, I
Okay,
think it
so
doesn't make
increase of all fees except the storage racks rate that we have, and that we would freeze. Is that what I'm understanding? And then
That's
we'll
what I
look,
think.
we'll look at the other rates next, as we go forward in the winter. Okay.
Okay.
Can I have a motion so worded?
I move we approve the rates as stipulated here, with the exception of that seasonal rack rate, which we're going to leave the same.
Second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Okay, this is fitness center fee recommendations for FY14. In your packet, you saw a lot of documentation that we utilize in order to get a pulse of competition, where we are in regards to that competition. So we do utilize that when we are preparing our recommendations. We understand our main competition is the both public and private fitness clubs, as well as some studios throughout the city of Lake Forest. We are kind of right in the middle between the Lake Bluff Fitness Center owned by the Park District and the Lake Forest Health and Fitness owned by the hospital. So we try to position ourselves kind of right in the middle of those two. So recommendations for fees is to increase membership fees by 3.5, with the exception of changing some of the senior memberships to reflect the 25% discount. So this variance in additional discount is anywhere from 4 to 18%. Depends on the duration, either 3 months, 6 month, year, if you're a resident or non-resident. So again, anywhere from 4 to 18%. So we are recommending increasing those rates to reflect the 25%. This could increase a membership monthly fee by less than $2 for, I believe it was a resident senior, to $12.67 for I think it's a three or 6 month non-resident fee. But it does make the policy or the fees consistent with Lakefront fees. And one additional thing that we'd like to do is we'd like to institute an all-inclusive pass for group exercise classes. Lake Forest Hospital has this, Lake Bluff has this as well. We do not, and we feel that this does limit our ability to attract not only members to the fitness center, but also for our group exercise classes. So we would like to be able to institute this. We do have a fee of $279 for members and $620 for non-members. Excuse me, and we would like, you know, all fitness center fees generally taken into effect May 1, the start of our fiscal year. But with this all-inclusive pass, we would like to start selling it in December. That does coincide with the end of the year. You make a New Year's resolution to get healthy, get fit, and this is a perfect opportunity for us to package the all-inclusive group exercise class with our fitness center membership. So we think that we will be able to attract more members or potential members to the fitness center.
Can I just mention that since I've been here in 5 years, this is the #1 request that I get from especially the ladies who take multiple classes. They used to have to sign up by individual class, and then they could only go to that class. Then we went to the punch pass to kind of give them the flexibility between classes. But it just, then they wanted to, you know, we'd like to use the fitness center once in a while in addition to the classes, but we never had that kind of all-inclusive option to allow us to compete with the other clubs. So I hear this on a pretty regular basis that they would like a simple, you know, I can use any aspect of the facility, or I'd like to take unlimited classes and not have to keep coming back in here and buying these passes all the time. It would just be easier for them. And so I think it will really put us more typical with other clubs, and it'll be such a customer-friendly approach to it that hopefully all those individuals who are listening out there tonight know this, because that's something they've been asking for a very long time. So it's nice to finally get to that point to offer something.
Does it make it harder to program though if you don't know, like, we don't know if we're gonna have 2 people or 20 people here?
You know, we do have limitations with our studio size, so there will be certain classes, like a spin class, where you would have to call, you know, ahead 24 hours to reserve your bike. And that's typical with a lot of the clubs, you know, unless you're in the giant clubs that have, you know, 75 bikes. But even them, sometimes they have requirements to do that. But the most of our classes, we think we have room to accommodate. If we grow to that point, then we would probably have to pull those aside and, you know, say to call them in as well. But at least you could go to any class on the schedule, you know, that you wanted to go to easily throughout the whole year without having to come back constantly and get new passes that are expiring and things. So
So staff does anticipate a positive revenue differential of $29,443 for over FY 2013. And we did set a small benchmarking for the number of passes that we think that we're going to be able to do for the all-inclusive, but I think that we should be able to hit that target. And just so that, I'm sorry.
A quick question so the all-inclusive non-member, does that then get them?
That gives them unlimited classes. If they're a
Okay.
non-member, they can go to unlimited group exercise classes.
It's not a fitness center.
No fitness center.
So it looks to me like, I mean, that'd be, okay, I'm just trying to say why someone would not get the membership and then the all-inclusive pass as an individual, which would just be a few dollars more.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. We're
Yeah.
trying to encourage them to
Okay.
take out a membership too. I mean, and it's really a good thing for them to think about having a diversified workout schedule, and they also then meet our trainers and other things that
Right,
could.
so for $12 more, they can get everything.
Right.
Okay, that seems like a very tiny difference.
We're hoping they all connect the dots like that.
Thanks for making it easy for me to.
Right.
I mean, one of the things we have right now with this facility is usage is down, right?
Correct.
So I think it's a good idea to make it easy. We want to get more and more people in there using the facility. I think, you know, the competition has been very aggressive, and there's a lot of members who've left.
And Scott, to the point that a question was raised about overfull classes, if you introduce them to the center, they typically, and I only know this from running the health club that I did down in Glenview, what we saw from that in past was that the typical group exercise person took 2 group exercise classes a week, and they swiped in at the fitness center 2 times. So they ended up splitting up their workout time between the 2 instead of maybe just group X classes. So it really allowed you then to be able to do more class availability than you would if they were just taking a group X punch pass. So it's a really good thing to encourage that.
Any other questions? May I have a motion to approve the FY14 fitness center fees
So
as
moved.
proposed? Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is passed. The next item is the capital improvement plan for next year presented by Mary Van Arsdale.
Good evening. I'm going to scoot over here so that I can use some overhead projection. But just as a reminder with the board, we did have a committee of the whole meeting last week to go through this in depth. And I know we spent a lot of time together as a group talking about what our capital needs were, what our priorities needed to be, what kinds of things impacted our timing of some of the projects that we were looking at. And I really felt it was a very good workshop. I appreciated everyone's time and sharing of ideas that we had at that workshop, and this document, you know, will reflect that. But just to kind of remind those who are at home who might be watching is we have 2 primary capital funds that we can do our projects through. One is called the Park and Public Land Fund, and that fund is primarily comes from monies that we receive from impact fees. And with that comes a very strict definition of the types of projects that we can do in that. It has to be something that the entire public has access to and can enjoy, and it has to be something that is considered a new element that you're bringing in. You can't use it for general repairs or partial replacements of existing assets. So with that, you know, we had to look at our projects each year. We had to look at what meets that definition that could go into our Park and Public Land Fund. Also, we have a limited amount of money in the Park and Public Land Fund because impact fees are down because we aren't seeing as much development, though we are really pleased to see that there was some development in Lake Forest this last year in very small levels, but it did come in to benefit us. And we had a project last year that was in our capital plan that under this fund that was building maintenance was doing, and they've decided to not do that in one lump project, and they're going to slowly do the lightning protection systems on our buildings spread out over a number of years. So that money then was returned and kept in this fund that we could now use potentially for the projects this year. So that's the Park and Public Land Fund. The second fund that we get monies from is the capital fund, and that is the fund that really does 90% of all projects for the city: streets, repair, it's, you know, sewer lining, it's building repairs for, you know, throughout the whole city. So we, in essence, if we can't afford it in our Park and Public Land Fund and it doesn't meet the definition, then we submit our request through the capital fund with the city, and we are then evaluated in context of the rest of the other city projects, and from that then we'll see what our funding comes. So we started 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, I guess, meeting with the park board and prioritizing our projects. So this year, right now, we have 7 projects under the capital fund. So we will go through the exercise as a staff, the city staff, and look at what all projects are coming in from all departments, what is the available funding, and then the city manager and city council will make a decision on what projects to fund. So we don't know at the time that the park board's approving it tonight whether we'll get all 7 of these projects or not. But this ranking process allows staff then to be able to say if they're only going to do 500,000 and, you know, we are asking for 560,000, then the whatever was the last project that brought us under the threshold may have to be dropped off. And it gives the staff, myself, an opportunity to really know what it is to pull back on and what are the priorities of the park board and try to get those accomplished within the realm of funds that are available. So, that's the kind of approach that we've taken for the last several years. Having said that, Trish, if you could put the chart up for me. I know this is kind of hard to read at home, sorry about that. But as I mentioned, we have 7 projects identified in the capital fund, which is 1 through 7 here. And I'll just read them off because they are hard to read at home. But the first and foremost project that received the #1 priority ranking was our tree replacement program. And this is an ongoing program, annual program that we do that removes dead and diseased trees along the city right-of-ways and really contributes to the aesthetics of the community. Talking with the park board, it was evident to the staff that evening how important this particular element is to the park board, and that this is a prized aesthetic improvement and need in our community. It's one of the things that makes Lake Forest special. And knowing that, we wanted to make sure that the funding there was committed. Staff actually have had less money to do this in the last few years. And through our discussion at the Committee of the Whole, Park Board did request that we boost that money up this year, especially in light of other challenges we have with EAB, as well as other, you know, storm damage in the last few years. We want to get ourselves back on the track to a similar funding pattern that we've had maybe in prior years before we've had some severe budget cuts. So looking at that, staff did come back with $100,000 instead of the full $150,000 I think we talked about, because you asked us to look at what's been the historical spending. And we did go back, and we actually, our typical year was more 97,000. So we felt the $100,000 was appropriate. The second item up there is tree inventory. And basically, we started a program this year to inventory all of our urban forests for the city. And we did part of it this year, and we had a grant to assist us with part of it. And this allows us to continue completion of that very important document that we feel then will help us better manage what our needs are throughout the community, where to do our pruning cycles, how best to use our manpower allocation, and then where is the most aesthetic impacts going to benefit our dollars that we would spend. So this was a $20,000 capital improvement request that we put on the list. The third item was a revenue generating item. It's our cardio equipment at the recreation center, as well as the vision. It's the TVs that are on each cardio piece. But again, what we've done is put this on a 5-year replacement plan. So 1/5 of our cardio equipment is replaced on an annual basis so that we can bring in new and current fresh cardio pieces for our members to enjoy, as well as not have these big, huge, giant costs that come at us in 1 year because we haven't kept up with it. So this is a portion of our cardio that we are requesting. And again, as I mentioned, this is a revenue facility. It does generate net profit. It's very important to allow us to do the other services that don't bring us in money, and so it is an important element. And that one is priced at $30,000. The fourth item is our bike master plan and maintenance capital project. We manage the bike trails throughout the community, and what unfortunately, I think we've seen is that we had great grant monies to get a lot of the bike trails in, and some of the bike trails have been here, of course, a very long time, but they are aging, and we're seeing a dramatic increase in the number of bikers using the bike trails, and that's from all kinds of bike uses. That's mom and dad with the kids out on a ride, to bike clubs passing through our community, you know, to those that are kind of the short distance, you know, exercise bike riders. So we really feel that it's time that we begin to pay more attention to the bike trails and address that. And I think it'll segue in perfectly to the bike master plan, which the city is working on currently, so that, you know, we are comprehensively going to be looking at our biking system, and some of this may help with some of the initial goals that are identified through that, whether it's enhanced signage along our trails, some safety improvements that we need to do. But with that, we are recommending $100,000, and we know we can do that, spend that kind of money this year with justified projects. We do have pruning along the bike trails as an example of just something that needs to happen, and some significant crack replacement and repairs that we have. The fifth item on the list we had was our selectorized strength equipment. Again, this comes along with the fitness center. It's the weight machines that we have in the fitness center. And it fell a little lower on the list because it does have a durability that's a little bit longer than cardio equipment. And should we not be able to do everything, that would be something that we felt it could hold off another year. But it is something that's quite old at this point, and we do want to make sure when we replace it, we replace the entire system of it, because it's weights, calibrated machines, things like that. You want a consistent circuit for people when they're working out on the selectorized equipment. And that one was $75,000. The sixth item and seventh item are two that are kind of new. And it's something that, again, as we have merged departments and looked at ways of streamlining costs for the city, this is something that I think kind of got lost in the shuffle as far as how best to address these and how to fund these. And this is the landscape replacement needs that we have. Again, we have a very strong desire in the community to have an appropriate aesthetic appearance around our public facilities. Some facilities the city owns, and we operate them for the benefit of city hall as an example. Dickinson is the senior hall, you know, the library, those kinds of things. There's other city facilities that we own, but we lease them and another organization runs them. That's Ragdale, Gorton, Elwa Farm. So there's different scenarios here. But what we were recommending on here, and you'll see on these last two, is number 6 and 7, then was some placeholders in here of $20,000 each to allow us to begin to go back to some of those facilities and identify landscape enhancements that need to occur. For instance, at Gorton this last year, we needed to replace a significant number of the boxwoods. There is some desire to do some different entrance plantings, changing it up. Some things get old. Landscaping grows and, you know, gets out of shape, and you can only prune it back so much. So our staff during the winter would take time to go out and inventory these facilities, city-owned and operated and city-owned and leased, and try to get a game plan on what priorities would happen to use this money. It's not a lot of money, but it allows us to keep up with those facilities and begin to have that dialogue of how best to fund them. There's going to be obviously some discussion about whether or not these are strictly a city's responsibility, even if we own them, whether they're leased or not. Is it the city's responsibility to manage the landscape? And it is kind of a mixed bag in that the city does do what I would call the big envelope things for our leased facilities like Gorton. That might be the roofs, the windows, you know, the HVAC. Some of the interior stuff obviously is not us. If they, you know, do other minor changes, then that's been on Gorton's budget, not necessarily the city's budget. So we need to have those conversations. Another example I can give at Gorton that came up recently was the desire to replace the playground. It's not a public playground necessarily for the community to use. It's for the daycare drop-in center that Gorton runs over there. But the reality is it's on city property, and it's an amenity that is used by residents for the most part of the community. Whose responsibility to pay for that or not? And it's not up on here as an example, because we were able, our parks crew did go over and do an inspection for them. We did do some basic maintenance, and the playground is sound right now, so it didn't come up. But that's an example down the road of something that could come up. So we felt that staff brought this to the park board for a discussion item, because I do think it's important that we begin to get our arms around this and whose whose responsibility it is and make sure it shows up in a budget. Because the last thing we want to do is have these facilities around the community not looking good or not being safe, and we want to make sure that we're, being proactive about that.
Mary, I know we talked about this a little bit before, but just, is there any consistency at all to the lease agreements we have with these various outside organizations relative to whose responsibility it is to do these things?
Actually, that's a good question, and that is something that the city attorney has been working on this past year. He has started to standardize the leases so that as they come up again for renewal, he has a standard lease document that we're going through. We're actually going through that right now because, believe it or not, even though we're a city department and we're using a city facility, the Wildlife Discovery Center will have a lease, or not a lease, a license to use Eloa, our portion of the Eloa farm. And so with that, we are looking at the standard language that is used for the other tenants that are out there. So there's some standardization of that. So they are, and that's kind of where some of this did come up as well, because with Gorton's financial challenges, which they're on the right path, so that's wonderful news. There was some questions though about how best to address some of these items and clearing up the paper, it was never clear in some of those leases of those responsibilities. We have the Lake Forest Symphony or North Shore School of Music out at Volweiler. We have a lot of situations like that, so the city attorney is trying to clean all that up. So I think we're segueing into what has been a conversation that hasn't necessarily come down to us yet, but it'll put us in the mix as part of those lease agreements.
Good. I mean, my push would be to provide those services, but to have some level of increase in fee associated with that, so we control that, so that none of these facilities end up looking badly, but that they also get some level of funding from the user.
Right, and a lot of these we can assist keeping their costs down with some labor assistance.
Absolutely, it shouldn't be that expensive if
right.
we plan on an annual basis for it, right?
Right, so we have no problem with that, but when it actually comes to physical dollars that you have to go purchase the things, or that we have to, if we can't do it, we had to outsource it, then it would be worthwhile to make sure that they understand whose budget is paying for those kinds of things. Bike racks, there's a host of things, drinking fountains, those kinds of things come our way, and they add up, $1,000, $1,500, and over the, next thing you know, you've done $10,000 of those kinds of items. So we're really trying to get a good sense of that so that we can be consistent and fair to all of the groups that ask us for these kinds of support. So having said that, as I mentioned, we've got 7 items in the capital fund, and the total for that was $365,000 of requests.
Hey, Mary,
Yeah.
real quickly, when we met at the committee of the whole, we had, I think, the bike plan for like 200,000, and we were looking at the tree replacement program at 55, and we've raised tree replacement by 45 and lowered bike by 100. So.
Well, what we did was we had 55 in the tree replacement. So as you say, we looked at putting another 100 there. Taking 100 out of the bike plan.
Right.
But when we looked at what we actually had spent, we didn't spend as much as that. So we left it at 100 in the bike plan and 100 for the tree replacement. And then next year, we had no money for the bike plan, and we put money into the bike plan next year.
So the difference of 55 or whatever it is budgeted for next year then?
It could be for next year. We
Okay,
haven't
great.
done that budget yet, but it would be for next year.
Great.
Correct. That is correct.
Our principle was to get it back to where it had been, and I guess where it
This
had
is
been
it.
was 100 instead
Yep.
of
And
150.
we talked with, Chuck and I talked after the meeting too, just making sure that we aren't taking on more work, because we also will do the bike trails and things like that than what our crews can manage, or that we would want to oversee if we outsource some of this work this year. So, any other questions on the capital fund? Okay. So then the second component was the money in the Park and Public Land Fund, which is these 3 items here on the bottom. We only had 3 projects because we have estimated a potential availability of funds of $397,000. And the number 1 item that the Park Board prioritized was the walking path that goes through Triangle Park. And with that, the path's in very poor condition, and we put a placeholder in here for doing that work. We did have a long discussion about what the surface, might be beneficial in that park. Obviously, it is a major thoroughfare for a number of reasons in that side of the community, whether it's going for residents walking to the beach and youth walking to the beach, going to the college. We have people who work at the college, students, we have commuters, people who come to the library from the east side of town, et cetera. So it's a very busy path. However, we also know that we have significant requests annually, especially from the college, to snowplow that and keep that path open as a thoroughfare walking path. And typically, we do not do all the sidewalks, throughout the community unless it is a major route like that. So last year was our first year that we actually started plowing the path again through that park. To early in the morning to make sure that that path was open. So whatever surface we put down there, we recognize it is going to need a maintenance capability that allows us to maintain it as a walking path at all seasons of the year. So we will look at some different options, and before these projects obviously go to bid, we would bring them for discussion to the park board. So this number may go up should the park board have an interest in a permeable surface as an example. I'm not sure there's, Chuck and I chatted, and we're not sure there's a lot of benefit to a permeable surface in this particular location because it's already crowned as a, area that we aren't needing to hold water on the site. I mean, there's some reasons why you may not want to invest additional money into a permeable surface, but environmentally it is an enhancement in some ways because everything stays on site. So those are the kinds of things we could bring back with the cost, and you can weigh those out. But the $40,000 is more than it would cost us to put an asphalt path in. And it was, as you remember our discussion, it would get us up to a level of possibly a concrete sidewalk. It wouldn't let us do a stamped concrete and may not let us do a permeable, but it's close to where it would be if we wanted to do an elevated surface. And then we could bring that back for, some discussion on what we want to do with that. But it's in bad shape. We are going to do some patching this winter just to make sure some of the key areas are smoother, and then we'll come back and tackle this one next year. The second item was the Northcroft Park, which at Northcroft Park, which is the parking lot, and there's a walking path along the north loop of the park, and the asphalt there is really showing deterioration and needs to be removed and replaced. So this dollar amount that we have here was, $190,000. So it's our big ticket item next year. But it is a heavily utilized park, and it's, we've been slowly kind of making our way through the parks and getting the parking lots up, and this is one of them. I did want to mention as part of our discussion with the park board and for those at home is that there is, after the first of the year, we'll be kicking off a master planning process for the Grove Cultural Campus that will tie in with the Northcroft Park because it's been a few years since that campus has been opened, and the use dynamics are changing a little bit down there. It's an opportunity for us to look at how that park overall, that property, I should say, overall is being used. I know our Sterling Hall participants struggle with parking limitations when they come for classes in the evening with all the different things that are there. It's not a super busy area, but it still needs some tweaks to its design down there. And then, so we didn't want to do a lot at Northcroft Park because we're going to tie it all in together, but these are existing footprints of something that's there now that's heavily used. We weren't adding anything new to it that we would challenge where the master plan was headed. So the park board then felt it was a good timing project to continue to look at. And then and that one too, I know Curt, you had expressed interest in looking at a permeable surface as well. We do have existing structures already in place there, so you would in essence be having to tear that out before you put an impermeable in, which is going to be more expensive, but we'll bring those options to you so that you can understand that and determine whether or not that's of interest to the park board to begin to incorporate those. And then the last one is the Northcroft Tennis Court. We've got some large cracks in that at that facility, so this would allow us to get that tennis court up to standard that we have with our other tennis facilities throughout the community. So that was $305,000 total. As you can see, because these are complete replacements, they do allow us to do it within the Park and Public Land Fund's definition. And so the total for capital, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. The total is down here in the red, which was $670,000 of capital requests. And just as a frame of reference, last year we requested $657,638,000 from City Council, and that was funded. So this is a slight increase over what we did last year of our capital requests. And then not it's not on the chart up there because it's kind of a separate aspect, is we do have the golf course, and its capital is funded by the operations of the golf course, and we are requesting spending $45,000 to replace a mower at the golf course this year, and then $185,000 would be from our recreation operational fund. And annually what we do is we have various equipment that we use in parks and forestry, and the rec department, like our sailing, et cetera, that we take money out of the operations, about $150,000 a year, and it's put into this fund so that when we need to replace our vehicles on a regular schedule, which is determined by fleet, useful life, how it's been running, repairs, all that kind of thing, we have a funding mechanism to make sure we replace our equipment for our department. So that comes out of there. And then also we have a small amount of money in there this year for looking at we're trying to figure out what to do next with our technology for our class registration system. It's a software package that we currently have that the vendor no longer supports the version that we have, and is encouraging us to go up to their level of software. It is a very robust, it's a high quality software package, but it's very expensive because primarily priced to benefit large municipalities like City of San Francisco, the City of Chicago. Small agencies like us, sometimes it's not maybe economically as desirable. The good news is if we went to that, we know we like the system and it would give us probably what we would need. But we'd like to look at other vendors if we have that opportunity and see if there's a way to keep our costs down and change over to a new software vendor if that's a desire. So we need to do the research on that, and our IT needs to look at all those configuration options for us. So that would give us the money this year to do all of that investigative legwork and research that we would have to do to vet those companies to be able to move forward the following year with replacement of some sort. So having said that, the recommended action that we are seeking tonight is for the fiscal year 14 capital improvement plan. It's $365,000 from the capital fund, $305,000 from the park and public land fund, $45,000 from the Deerpath golf operation fund, and $185,000 from the park and recreation operation fund. And if park board approves this tonight, it would go on to discussion with the all the city departments, and eventually to city council in the month of November.
Questions?
We vetted this pretty thoroughly before, so I'm feeling very good about it.
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the FY14 capital improvement plan as proposed?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. The next item is related to a change in the meeting calendar for our board, due largely to a change in the city council's approach to when they want to get the information to the alderman and the mayor. It's kind of forced us to change when we get together, and so the proposal is beginning in January to meet on the third Tuesday of the month, as opposed to what we currently do, which is the second Tuesday of the month. We also talked about this a bit at the committee of the whole meeting. You have the revised calendar in your packet. Hopefully that doesn't cause too much hardship for anybody. Do we need to vote on it, Mary?
We do, so we can put it into the record.
All right, can I have a motion to change our meeting calendar beginning in January of 2013 to the third Tuesday of the month?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Next item is the director's report. Mary?
I have nothing, well, a couple things. I shouldn't say that. Nothing too significant, but I was informed by Jeff tonight that the resurfacing project at the Lakefront is basically complete. We have some small boats and things to start moving back in, but the asphalt is, surface and everything is done. So that's very good news. So we got it in and the weather, and everybody was terrific in getting their boats out and working with us to make sure that project got done. So it went off without incident, really. And then the only other thing I have is just to share with you some upcoming events we have. The first one is the Croctoberfest. As you know, we started that last year out at the Wildlife Discovery Center. It's going to be on Saturday, October 20th from 11 to 2. And it's a really neat program, a lot of interesting animal opportunities to, you know, see different animals of our Wildlife Discovery Center. We've got craft vendors and storytellers, and just a great hands-on kind of neat thing. And we have a special presentation from noon to 1 where we'll present on the critically endangered Siamese croc. And last year when we had this, it was, the enthusiasm out there was just really fun to see. And it's really a great you know, fundraiser for the Wildlife Discovery Center. So we encourage everybody to come out and join us. It's a $5 donation at the door, and then you can go around all the stations and, you know, come to the main presentation and stuff that we have. So that's our first event. The next item is Kinder Haven's Preschool Academy is having, accepting fall drop-ins if you want to come by and check out the facility. It's going to be in November 2nd and the 16th, and from 2 to 4 o'clock, but it's a great opportunity if you have a little one that's, you know, going to be looking for a preschool to come check us out. As we mentioned previously, we were voted the #1 preschool on the North Shore, so we were pleased with that, and we had a waiting list this year, so this is your opportunity to get a peek at that wonderful program that we offer before enrollment begins for the next school year. So that's up there. The third item I have is a program called Company Cares, and it's a program that is run by our Dance Academy, and basically they do different things annually. That is kind of their giving back and you know, trying to show that they can be socially impactful. And so on October 14th from 1 to 4 o'clock, they'll be having this special program, and it's $25, and you do need to sign up for this one. But it's a whole program on different movement things and stuff that the girls can enjoy, and guys too. So we encourage those who are interested in that and supporting this terrific benefit that they do on October 14th. And then the last one, of course, is our annual Halloween party. And it's going to be on Sunday, October 28th from 1 to 4 at the Rec Center. We'll have the games and all kinds of activities, the haunted house, you know, lots of treats and candy. It's always fun to see the staff all dressed up and see all the little ones come. You don't have to come in costume, but if you do, it's always fun. And it's for preschool through 3rd grade, and it's a free event. So you don't need to sign up necessarily. We like to know how many people are coming, but it's great just to come for that. And I should say that this event, we are pleased that, again, we are being sponsored by Forest Orthodontics and Pediatric Dentistry. They've been a great sponsor for us to help us with hosting this event on behalf of the community. So lots of fun things in the month of October that families can come out and enjoy. So we hope to see you there. So in costume too.
You're not going to give us any previews of what your staff are going to go as?
I don't know. They surprise me every year, and they're really good. I mean,
Let's hear your cackle.
Yes.
yeah. No, I can do that already. Joe Mobile was one year, was just hysterical. Like a couple years back, he came as the 8-ball, you know, and completely black. He had shaved his head, and it was just black, and you know, it was number 8, and it was just, he was all like a completely round black, you know, pool ball. It was great. So they do quite creative things, and our preschool teachers are amazing with the costumes that they come up with. So it's fun around the rec center. So we encourage everybody to come by and see all of it. So.
All right, thanks, Mary. Any comments by board members? We haven't covered already?
We're good. I just want to publicly compliment the staff for the planning that you did on the capital budget. I thought that was really well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Opportunities for the public to address the board, items not listed on the agenda. It is time to adjourn. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.